Well, hello, and welcome to the Talking Tennis WTA show. I'm your usual host, Nick Carter, and I'm here with our illustrious guest, multiple major doubles champion and broadcaster, tennis coach. You've literally done a bit of everything, Rennae Stubbs.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
It's absolute pleasure. It's first time, obviously, we've spoken in person, but I think we're going to have some good tennis chat. Obviously, you're obviously still very much passionate about the game, as am I, as a fan. So did you get a chance to watch much of Stuttgart?
Yeah, I watched quite a bit of it. I was happily on vacation in Mexico, but it just came on at a really good time for me to sit and watch. Not every match, obviously, but most matches I got a chance to sit and watch. And yeah, it's one of my favorite tournaments. It was one of my favorite tournaments to play, and they just do a fabulous job there.
Yeah, and as a fan, it's a fabulous tournament to watch. I mean, maybe more on the television screen, but they do seem to put on a show there. And for what you can say about WTA 500 draws, the fact it was stacked meant there was a match very much worth watching every single day. If I think last week I was in the office and I was super excited to get back on the Tuesday night to go and watch Raducanu versus Ostapenko.
Well, that's what happens when you offer the top 10 of Porsche to come to the tournament. You get a lot of great players there.
Was that a massive incentive for you when you were playing, or maybe they didn't offer it for the doubles, did they?
Well, sadly, yeah, I won that tournament a bunch of times in doubles, but sadly we didn't get a Porsche. We didn't even get a replica. So, but for the singles players, if you're top 10, just to go to the tournament, you actually get given a Porsche. So it's a pretty good incentive to head to Stuttgart.
I feel like there was a tournament that did have a big prize for doubles at some point, surely, somewhere.
One that I won 60, and I don't remember one other. I'm not
okay.
going to about the money that we made, but the money now that they're making is a tremendous amount more. But I'm not going to complain about that, considering Billie Jean won like $2,500 to win singles at Wimbledon. So it's all fair in love and war, I guess.
Yeah, it's all very much generational. Okay, so obviously we enjoyed this tournament a lot. Now. I assume one of the matches you watched was that final between Iga Swiatek and Aryna Sabalenka.
Yes.
Obviously, lots of stats about it. It's the first 1v2 WTA rankings clash outside of a year-end championship since Australian Open 2018 final. If you include the year-end championships, it's the 2019 clash between Ash Barty and Karolina Pliskova was the last time we had number one versus number two in the WTA rankings facing off against each other. I was really excited for that final, and although it was straight sets, I thought it delivered a very high quality match from both players. They both really went for it. It was nice to see Swiatek being able to sort of counteract whatever Sabalenka was throwing at her. Sabalenka still able to hit through her quite a lot. What were your thoughts on that final?
Yeah, I think this was, for me, a really big stressful moment for Iga Swiatek, to be quite honest. I think that, indoors really favors someone like a Sabalenka, who possesses a massive, big, flat serve. And her game really doesn't have a lot of margin. I mean, she has a little bit of margin on the back. Oh, she's putting more spin on the backhand and forehand these days, sort of understanding that she needs to get into some points, but really her game is 1-2 shot tennis. She wants to get first strike and go after it. So indoors really favors players like that. When you think about someone like Alicia Parks, the young American who won a tournament at the beginning of this year and did really well at the end of last year, and every tournament that she's won is indoors because she plays very risky tennis, big serving, big returning, really goes for it. And that's sort of Sabalenka. So I thought this was a very it was a test for Iga Swiatek in a lot of ways, because she's heads and shoulders above everybody on clay. Her movement on clay is, better than anybody's. She can defend better than anyone on clay. Her sliding ability, all of those sorts of things. So for me, this was a huge test for her, because Sabalenka indoors was always going to push someone like Iga. But, obviously last year similar result. But for me, with the confidence that Sabalenka has this year, especially with the serving, and she even said it before the match, look, I wasn't serving well last year. This is a different situation now for me. The difference was really the serving ability of Iga Swiatek under pressure And frankly, just her ability to defend on this quite slippery indoor surface of clay. I know it's clay, but it is a little bit more slippery than, say, Rome, Madrid, and maybe not Madrid, because Madrid has got that little bit of altitude. But the French Open really favors someone as beautiful a mover as Swiatek, whereas the indoor surface is quite slippery. So I thought this was a big, big mental and confidence booster for Iga Swiatek.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, she's under a lot of pressure. She hasn't started this year as well as she started last year. Although, let's face it, last year was a very high bar to try and match.
Well, no one had done that in 20 years, so I'm not going to hold that one on her.
Yeah. So, but obviously, she was coming to this with like a 500 title. She hadn't won either of Indian Wells or Miami. And so obviously, and Sabalenka seems to be the player who's kind of rushing up to challenge her now. She had a rocket start to the year with winning Australia, final Indian Wells. So it did feel like if Sabalenka could win that match, it was going to be a massive shift in her favor and sort of their kind of battle for the top of the game. But as you said, Iga just that little bit better on clay, and maybe it was as much pressure on Sabalenka to kind of prove that she could be up there as much it was for Iga, maybe.
Yeah, I think in this circumstance, I think Sabalenka probably would have felt not lucky, but felt pretty good about making the finals here. She was in some tough matches, particularly the one against Badoza, where really she was kind of out of it in a set and down very heavily in the second set. So I think she would have been pretty pleased with getting through to the final. It's sad what happened to Ons Jabeur. Would have loved to have seen the Ons Jabeur Iga Swiatek match on this surface, just because I think Ons' ability to hit drop shots and really change the pace of the ball, and also her defensive ability around the court. It would have been interesting for me to watch her and Iga go at it. But I think for Sabalenka, as I said, I think she'd be super happy. Look, must feel frustrated at not winning this tournament. She's been in the finals now, I believe, 3 times in a row. So, but as I said, this is more a litmus test for me for Iga Swiatek. I felt if she could win this match, that was a big, big, huge boost for her. But for Sabalenka, I don't think she should be upset about this loss in some ways. But if she can't beat Iga indoors on clay, then I don't see her pushing Iga for the rest of the outdoor season. Look, but if Swiatek serves better, then she possibly has a chance, because she didn't serve that well in this match.
No, I suppose not. I mean, the other thing you've got to factor in with Sabalenka is, the slower the surface gets, the more of a disadvantage she's at. She still has yet to break 4th round of the French Open, like 3rd round the last 3 years, but never got past that point. So I would expect her to have a good chance of, breaking that duck, but I would agree with you on outdoor on clay that this is a bad sign for potentially being a challenger to Swiatek. I would guess that kind of leads us on to maybe another question that sort of like is kind of dominating the WTA clay court discourse, which is, who is Iga's biggest threat on clay, particularly at Roland Garros?
I think for me, the biggest threat for her will be someone like Barbora Krejcikova. I think if Krejcikova plays Iga in any quarter or semi, because they won't play before that, I think that'll be her biggest test. Obviously, we know that Krejcikova has done very well in the past against Iga. She has beaten her on clay, particularly in a final as well, which is a big thing to be able to do. Because some people might have little downs in their play, but Iga wants to win every single match, which is why she's such a great number one. But I think Krejcikova is probably the one that can push Iga in these moments on red clay. I don't think there's too many more outside of that. I think maybe a Badoza, because she hits with such heavy spin. But Iga's movement will hurt someone like a Badoza, because she'll get just one more ball back in the court. So for me, maybe an Ons Jabeur type of player as well that can sort of match it up against someone like Iga Swiatek on the sliding ability, the variety on the court. But so I'd probably put Ons and Krejcikova as the 2 players that maybe can push Iga on a clay court.
I would completely agree with that. I mean, when we were first having these discussions, like first name that came to my mind was Barbora Krejcikova, partly because of the head-to-head, as you mentioned. She's beaten Iga the last couple of times they played. Although I think, didn't Iga win the last time they played on clay? Was it that Rome match where it was just super close in 2021?
Well, I think that she beat her in a smaller tournament. Was it in Prague or after Wimbledon, I believe?
Oh, that was Garcia.
Yeah. Oh, that was Garcia. Yeah. So I mean, someone like a Garcia, for example, the French Open can really push someone like Iga as well, just because of the serving ability and the kicking ability. But it's just Iga's such an incredible mover around the clay court, so much better than not some of the players, but most of the women. Some of them really struggle to move. But her sliding ability and her defensive ability is just, it's second to none. Maybe an Ons is close, Maria Sakkari. But for me, Krejcikova is probably the best one, only because she's also won the French Open, and that really makes a big difference when you step onto a court and you know you can win a tournament. And also, Krejcikova does have a good head-to-head against Iga.
Yeah. Let's face it, we know that she can push it. It would be a really exciting match if that happens. I mean, I think probably the dream French Open final would be Swiatek versus Krejcikova. Last two most recent champions, two best potentially on clay right now. Someone who can challenge Swiatek. But look, the reason why we're talking about these as potential rivals is because we know Swiatek is that superior on the surface because of her movement, as you said, because of the top spin that she can produce on every shot that just skims off the clay. I think she's going to be very hard to beat unless she has a very, very bad day, kind of like she had against when she lost to Sakkari in 21. So there's that. We talking a lot about Ons Jabeur, and she's someone, I agree with you, who would also be contender, provided she's fit and healthy. I mean, we saw her pull something like first point of the match against Iga, really gutting. That wasn't a proper contest. That could have been magical. The injury concerns, I mean, obviously we don't know exactly what's injured, but do you think that's something that looks recoverable from, or would that look fairly serious?
Well, we don't really know. Obviously she's going to get some scans done to see if she's, torn anything or it's just a little bit of a strain. But gee, I mean, to see it happen so quickly, I'm really pleased, to be honest, that she stopped after 3 games. Most players would try and force it just to, I don't know. It's really, it's a very hard thing to default in the middle of a match as a competitor. And often you keep going, and with a calf or a lower leg extremity like that, it is very important that you don't play on, because, hopefully, as I said, it's just a strain. But if she kept playing and torn that, I tell you, one of the worst injuries you can have is a calf strain, because calf tear, because it's a nightmare to get rid of, and it's something that it really scares you. It's kind of like your Achilles. When you push off, you're always really worried. So we don't know. She hasn't told anyone of the extent of it yet, because I'm sure they're probably waiting to see. But I hope that it's just a mild strain, and she chose not to keep playing, because if she kept playing, that could have been a major, major injury for her, and she's already suffered one this year. So you wonder if the injury this year is also starting to, take control of the rest of her body, and that's sort of what happens. Your body starts to change a little bit and protect the other injury. So hopefully it's nothing serious.
Yeah, agreed. Really hope it's nothing serious. I mean, as you said, we don't know much detail of it. If it is one of the worst potential strains, then she'll know to look after it. Yeah. I am surprised she's not pulled out of Madrid yet. Haven't seen anything saying that she has.
Yeah, she's defending champion. So I think that she really wants to make sure that she's given it every single last little bit of time to prepare for it. And as I said, if it's just a strain or something that, she can work through. And also she's learnt the lesson from what happened earlier of coming back for Indian Wells and Miami a bit too early from her injury. I think she'll be very aware of not doing that, because as much as she wants to defend her title in Madrid, and as much as she, nobody wants to play her on clay, she's also thinking big picture. And the big picture is really she has the French Open around the corner, and also defending at finals of Wimbledon and the US Open. So her biggest points, yes, are Madrid, but they're really coming up at Wimbledon and the US Open. So she has to be very smart about the decision. And we as tennis players don't look sometimes into the future, and we should, and because it's very important for her to worry about those points.
Yeah. You know what? You're right. They do. It is very much important to look to the future, and like those US Open points are kind of the bedrock. If she drops the Madrid points, she's still going to be top 10. She's still going to get some good draws, maybe not as good as she would be as top 4, but the differences are fairly marginal, depending on who's in your top 4, of course.
That's right.
So hopefully it's all fine. But yeah, agreed. Maybe the wisest thing to do would be to pull out from Madrid and save herself for Roland Garros, because that's a big potential points gain for her,
Yes.
given that she went out first round.
That's right. And that'll be the conversation, I think, between her and a coach, and obviously her husband, fitness trainer, is that, yes, it's important. Yes, you don't want to pull out of a tournament you won last year. You will drop, somewhat in the rankings. But really what's more important is the French Open and, as I said, Wimbledon and the US Open, because that's really where her massive amounts of points are.
Yeah. And she's got, again, she's big favorite on grass right now.
Exactly.
So plenty to gain from Wimbledon with there being no points last year. So let's see how she does there. But just to wrap up on Stuttgart, because obviously this is all related to Stuttgart, the one remaining semi-finalist that we haven't touched on yet is Anastasia Potapova. Is she one to watch these next few months? She's had some good results.
I think she's one to watch anyway throughout. I mean, she's a very tenacious competitor. So many players play similarly to her in some respects. But she has a bit of an X factor in that she's really very tenacious, and you've got to hate to lose more than you want to win sometimes. And I think she has that in her. She really likes to compete, and I like that about her. And she's not afraid to show it, in her actions and the way she plays. And she's quite strong-willed and all that sort of stuff. So I think, yeah, absolutely, she's somebody to watch going forward. Nobody really wants to go up against her.
Yeah, look, she's just got a couple of big top 10 wins under her belt. And it has a clay court title. So let's see. Let's see again. Would you describe yourself as tenacious, Rennae? Our producer is asking.
Yeah, I think I was definitely a player that hated losing more than I loved winning, and everybody loves winning, and I loved winning. There's no question about that. But I really hated to lose. So, if I had to dive for a ball, for example, I mean, those are sort of the players that I sort of fit into that category. I'd die for a ball rather than not feel like I gave 100%. So I think I think to play professionally like I did for 20 something years, you've got to really love the game and you've really got to love competing.
Yeah, that's an interesting distinction. Could you name a tennis player who you would say loves to win more than they hates to lose, or active?
Some players just sort of get over it and they kind of get on with the next week and they don't really stress about it. And some just ruminate over losing for days. I mean, I think Lisa Raymond, my old doubles partner, she was somebody that once we lost, it was sort of within a half an hour, she was sort of over it. I mean, you're not really over it, but I don't want to pretend that Lisa didn't hate losing, because she hated losing and she won a hell of a lot. But, some people just, they could get on with it and whatever, whereas I would ruminate over for 2 days why we lost. So I think that's just a distinction of someone's personality. It's not a flaw. Absolutely. But I think someone like Serena, for example, hated losing so much. I think the greats really hate losing more than they like winning, because winning's fantastic, but boy, it really hurts them and hits them when they lose.
That's an really, really interesting bit of sports psychology there. I always enjoy when I do an interview and I get something out of it I didn't know before. And these two differing mentalities of tennis players. I think we always assume that we know everyone hates to lose, but how they deal with it, that sort of variety is quite interesting to me.
Yeah, and as I said, there's not a positive or negative. Some people, if you maybe don't get so carried away and don't get all bent out of shape and crazy when they're on the court, because they're able to sort of look at things a little bit more with perspective, I guess. So I don't think there's a positive or negative way of actually playing, but you've just got to hate. There's moments in matches where you kind of just shut down sometimes mentally and you're not really still engaged in the match, because you're like, okay, you know what? I don't care if I lose, but really down deep inside, you really do hate. You don't want to lose, but you kind of have that little part of you that's like, oh, well, okay, so if I lose this match, all right, I'm going to leave today. I'm going to be at the hotel in Paris tomorrow. And, and they pretend that it doesn't matter to them. Mm-hmm. Emotionally. And it's some players are like, oh my God, in their brain, they're like, I have to leave tomorrow. Come on, you can't lose this match. So there's that juxtaposition on the court where your brain either allows you to sort of take off the stress or put it on your shoulders. And neither way really works positive or negatively. It's how it works for you. And I think that's the difference. So someone like Lisa Raymond could sort of switch off and not pretend she didn't care, but really she did deep inside. But that allowed her to play freer. I don't know. There's a as I said, everyone different courses for different horses.
All right, that's a really fascinating insight, and another interesting player mentality with a strong mentality is someone you just mentioned, Serena Williams, who you actually coached towards the end of last year.
Yeah.
So when sort of her final stint on the tour, have you spoken to her recently at all?
Yeah, we text from time to time. Usually she texts me to make fun of me about something that I've done or I'm doing. I'm not joking either. It's usually something along those lines. I always know when I get a text from Serena, here we go. It's just going to give me crap about something. So yeah, we keep in touch. We, send each other text messages from time to time just to check in and see how we're both doing. And, she's busy with her, Serena Ventures and getting into producing now, productions in the media world, which I think is fantastic. Because we need more voices like hers to be involved in the media side, especially in sports. She's obviously doing great things with her venture, and I know that she's super busy with it. Clearly, she's got her kid, which takes up a lot of her time as well, Olympia. So yeah, she seems very happy and content with being retired.
That's really good to hear, actually, because sometimes you worry about sometimes, how are they dealing with it? But Serena, obviously never met her, you have, but even from seeing how she is on court or in interviews, she's seems very strong-willed, and to have something that she's super passionate about to throw herself into, for her, that sounds great.
Yeah. No, she's I'm happy that she's enjoying her life. This photo that you guys have up is a funny one because there was a very funny joke that I told her in practice in this moment. So, there's little things that you had, with Serena that I was, proud of. And also it was an amazing couple of weeks to be a part of. Something I'll never forget. And, if I made a difference for her in her last tournament, that was really my only goal, was to make her be happy. And, moments like this sort of bring some levity onto the practice court and bring some levity to her tennis, and having her enjoy the last 2 weeks of her career, really. That's the thing that I wanted to try and impart to her about not making it bigger than it was, even though it was a massive moment. And just having her enjoy and be positive about everything that was happening on the tennis court rather than negative. And that's really hard to do when you're thinking so much about the big picture, which was last tournament. I want to play well. And after seeing her play in Cincinnati, I was like, what can I impart to her as her friend, and knowing her for, 25 plus years, what could I help her with? And I thought just bringing some levity and also just my advice on a couple of things. And I'm glad that it helped her somewhat.
It seemed to really, do something. What she unlocked in that US Open run was incredible. I was sitting down every time I watched one of her matches, thinking, is this going to be the last one? And that hope that it wasn't just rose every single time. And she really delivered some brilliant performances, and probably only just fell short of a second week appearance. Did that stint with Serena make you consider coaching again?
Well, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, it's more about not what I want, it's what other people want. And,
right.
It was interesting after that stint with Serena, and obviously I was still working with Sam Stosur somewhat. She was playing doubles only at that point. And I wanted to finish, Sam wanted me to help her finish her career in a positive way, as we'd done over the 3 years prior. But and the beauty of Sam was like, yeah, go help Serena. And, Sam told me a funny story in the locker room that Serena came up to her. And obviously they know each other very well. And, they've had their pasts of playing each other many times in big matches. And Serena said to Sam, thanks for letting me borrow your coach for a couple of weeks, which was really cute. But honestly, I didn't get any calls. And this is what it comes down to, particularly for women coaches, is that no agent called me after that to work with one of their players. And often it does come down to agents, clearly players. Every job that I've gotten, except the one with Jeannie Bouchard, was players calling me and asking me if I'm available, whether it be Sam or Karolina Pliskova. Serena and I have that relationship. And Jeannie, it was more along the lines with Steffi and Andre, their connection with her out in Vegas at the time, that they suggested me as a coach for her in the interim while Sam wasn't traveling. So to answer your question, I didn't get an offer. So
right.
That's really what it comes down to, is people saying, oh, could you help me make a difference in my career? And unfortunately, no one called me. And now I have a permanent job on television at Amazon Prime Sports. And so I can't coach now because I'm pretty busy.
Yeah, well, I thought this might be your pitch. Tennis world, Rennae Stubbs is available to coach, but clearly you're throwing yourself into your broadcasting career now.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the negotiation tools really with Amazon. So I said, if you're going to sign me to a contract, I need to understand that's taking me away from coaching, and for me not putting myself out there, because I really love to do what I was doing, and I love coaching. I love imparting some wisdom and helping. I just like to help. I like to help players be better, and every single player that I've worked with has actually risen up the rankings quite a bit. So we'll see where the future lies. Right now, currently, I'm, as you're showing, the power hours where I'm at every weekday. So we'll see what happens. And I want to correct you, because last year, I know in Ostrava, Krejcikova actually beat Iga Swiatek in 3 sets. I'm like racking my brain over that. I was like, oh, I know that she beat her on clay after the French Open win last year. So in 2022, it was in Ostrava where Krejcikova beat Swiatek. So that's a good sign for Krejcikova, that she's actually beaten her a couple of times in finals, and one of them was on clay.
Yeah, I think Ostrava's on hard.
Was it?
Yeah. But that was a fantastic match. It's
well, there you go. I love that we're correcting each other, but yeah, you're right. But that, as we said, I think that would be, for me, the most intriguing final, because I think there would be panic for Iga, knowing that they're head-to-head and on clay. I think it would be a great match. Anyway,
I'd want that match. I'd want that match to happen.
I'd want that match too, yeah.
And do you know what? We could see them clash in Madrid, because
we could, yeah.
Krejcikova's is a potential quarterfinal opponent for Iga. It's quarterfinal last 16.
I like it. The matchup that I like is whoever wins Rome. I think whoever wins Rome, or whoever plays the best in Rome, because Madrid it's a bit of altitude. It's not really symbolic of, look at Nadal's results in Madrid comparison to everywhere else. So I think the altitude really helps the big servers. And having said that, I mean, Halep has won Madrid, but I think the big server, big 1-2. I remember when I played there, even as a serve and volley, it really suited me a lot more than, say, playing at the French or in Rome. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah, I actually agree with you, though, because Rome is far more relevant, and you can see even performances there are a good indicator for Roland Garros. The pace is similar.
Agreed.
So
and the temperature, unless it's temperature usually is about the same. So so Rome's always a good indicator for me.
Yeah. So so I would agree with you there. To be honest. So going back to Madrid, so how do you think that's gonna pan out? Obviously it's clay. Iga Swiatek is the favorite, but she hasn't won in Madrid. She didn't play last year. She lost to Ash Barty the year before, when she's really come into her own. I could imagine Madrid for her being similar to Nadal's relationship with Madrid, where, yes, he's very good on clay and he'll win it, but he's not going to be as strong there. He wasn't as strong there as in comparison to other clay courts. And I could see that being a similar situation for Iga, plus a potentially tough draw against either Krejcikova or Rybakina in the quarterfinals.
Yeah,
that could be an upset point. So for me, Iga's the slight favorite, but not dead cert. I don't know if that would be your thoughts as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, obviously, as I said, also players are very comfortable going back to the places that they've done well before, and just the fact that Iga, as you said, hasn't even reached the final there. I think we'll see. I think that she'll feel. She'll understand herself a little more when you think about how she hates grass, but she's starting to maybe feel like, oh, maybe I can get to a quarterfinal or semi at Wimbledon. And then obviously hard court, we saw her struggle so much at the US Open, just bitching and moaning about the balls and the court speed, and then she ended up winning the tournament. So I think maybe what she's doing slightly better is understanding her weaknesses don't define her as much anymore. And so I think maybe going into Madrid, she's probably, I don't know, well, we'll see after the 10 days is over. How can she problem solve in those moments? If the ball's flying on her a little bit, how does she bring it into the court a little bit more? And as I said, with that little bit of altitude, that's sort of what happens with the ball just flies off your racket. And if Iga's having a bit of a bad day, that's what happens. It just doesn't go in sometimes. And she cracks the ball every single time. So I think it's starting to figure out a way to problem solve. And I actually think winning that match against Sabalenka in straight sets may help her realize that she can problem solve. Not everything's going to come easy for her on clay, and she has to work her way into a tournament. So it'll be another litmus test for her. But as I said, if she doesn't win it, she's not going to be like, oh, well, I'm not going to win the French now, because she's never done well there anyway.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's really, really spot on analysis there. To be honest, I think, yeah, we'll see how it reacts. But yeah, I'm literally going to end up repeating everything you've just said. So there's no point in me doing that. You are very much the expert in this situation. I would imagine Sabalenka's feeling pretty confident going into Madrid. Obviously, she played pretty well in Stuttgart. She's won Madrid before. That famous win against, I would call it a famous win. Like, no one was expecting her to beat Barty in that final a couple of years ago. So she must be feeling good about her chances here.
Yeah, I think Sabalenka is probably the player to watch. Although, as I said, you know, someone like Krejcikova, she's sort of like a little bit of a box of chocolates these days, how she can sort of weave away into a tournament. And when she's on, she's so good. It's ridiculous. Like, she just doesn't miss. She gets into those modes, which is why when she plays well, she really does play well. But Sabalenka, as I said, the big serving really helps in Madrid because of the altitude. If you can hit your serve, which is why Nadal really didn't capitalize as much in Madrid, because he would get served off the court. Someone like a Rafael Roger did better in Madrid, you know. So I think the variety, hopefully Ons is feeling up to the task because I think her game is actually perfect for those types of, you know, the altitude and everything. But I don't know, Sabalenka, it depends on the serve. And if it's going in, then of course she's one of the best players in the world. There's no question about that. I mean, she's won as many matches as anybody this year.
That's an interesting question from Sean in the chat. If someone will be the Madrid finalist, should she skip Rome? Depends on the player. Really depends on the player. Some players benefit much better from momentum and just getting match win after match win to boost the confidence. So I think it really depends on who the player is, any injury concerns. I don't know if that's your thoughts, Rennae.
Well, you know, the thing is, the more you play on the clay, the better you get on it, the more comfortable you feel, and the fitter you get as well. Let's not forget about the fitness level. The more matches you win, it actually helps you in matches. You can get to a 5-all in the third, for example, and if you've done that a few times already in the previous weeks, your lung capacity, your legs are stronger. As long as you said, you're not injured, then it's much better for you. Also, there's a week off before the French Open, so these players can really load big time and then have that nice tapered week off of just practice before the French Open, and then it's one match every 2 days. So I think as long as you don't overdo it and you don't, for example, someone like Ash Barty a couple of years ago who, you know, pulled out with the leg injury and then had those weeks before the French Open, before Wimbledon, and then ended up winning Wimbledon. So I think it depends on, and I think Ash played too much. I think that was her issue actually going into the French Open, that she played too much prior to that. So you just have to be aware of how your body is, how you're playing, and if you feel like you can keep playing, then we'll see what happens. But someone like Iga knows how to handle this clay court season better than anybody.
Yeah, and you know, provided you know a player knows their body and knows their stake, actually, it would be better to place at least one match in Rome. As we said earlier, much more close conditions to Roland Garros. That's going to set you up very well for adjusting to those courts.
Yeah, I think most players would admit playing matches is a lot more fun than practicing for a week anyway. It's more stressful, obviously, especially for the top players like Iga and Sabalenka, who are expected to win every single match that they played right now, and Rybakina even. So I think playing matches is more stressful, but it's actually kind of believe it or not, it's sort of more fun than practicing, because practicing is just so boring. You know, you do so much of it, and you know, you first thought when you lose early in a tournament is, oh my god, I got 10 days of practice before I play again. So I think for most players, they'd rather play and then take that week off before the French Open and just have a nice relaxing practice week going into the French.
Yeah, unless you're Barbora Krejcikova, who wins the tournament the week before the French Open, the one when she did it. But
yeah,
she
but
seems
when
to be
you
the exception rather than the rule.
But she wasn't playing. She wasn't winning tournament upon tournament on tournament. So for her, it actually helped her believe that she could win tournament. So that's actually a good thing for her.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So it's I would say, yeah, very much odd example there of someone who didn't seem to have form, but then found it by doing that week before.
Yeah, so clay and grass are very different. You know, they're very similar in the fact that the more matches you have on them, the actual better you play. I think about Sam Stosur, for example, who always did well. She won Strasbourg a couple of times and went to the French and was feeling so good about her clay court tennis. And it's very much you work on different serves. It's a very different way of playing on clay than any other court. And the more patience you can figure out and understand about playing on clay, the better you will do later on.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, well, to wrap up on Madrid, I'm going to ask one more question. Any early round clashes you're looking forward to? Because for me, the WTA, one of the things that I most enjoy about it is you get good matches, like really, really strong lineups throughout the entire draw. So any early round clashes you're looking forward to?
You know, honestly, I'll pull up the draw so I can have a look at it. But,
good plan.
Because I haven't looked at the draw. But you know, look, the bottom line is with the women's, the way that the women's is right now, it's unbelievable how strong every single tournament is. I mean, they load up. I mean, when you think about even like someone like Sloane Stephens, who can't win matches at the moment, it's just unbelievable to me because she's such a good player. But you know, when will those players start breaking through again, or will they just decide that, you know, they don't want to play anymore? And so, you know, I'm gonna pull up the draw so I can have a look at it, to be honest.
That's fine. That's fine.
But also qualifying, like we should be showing qualifying on Tennis Channel instead of repeats.
Yes.
I don't know why we don't show that on Tennis Channel rather than just having, you know, repeats of matches that were this week and last week. That sort of drives me crazy, but that's a whole different story. I'm looking at it now. I think, you know, someone like Kontaveit, for example, has just had such a struggle over the last, you know, 7 months. You know, her against Muchova. Muchova's that type of player to me that also is just like, when is she going to break through into the top 10? She's such a good player. Talk about injuries that have really hurt her. Someone like Sophia Kenin, you know, when can she? I think she's going to be back inside of the top, certainly top 20, but I think she can be back inside the top 10 maybe by this time next year. She's sort of starting to get a little bit more of a groove on, and Michael Joyce is now on the bag with her, helping her, and he's such a terrific coach, and I think he's going to be good for her tennis. Bianca Andreescu, you know, how's she going to be back after the injury to her ankle? You know, it seems like she's ready to go and play. Is she the type of player that's going to break through on one of these Grand Slams again? I don't know. But, you know, looking at the draw, obviously all the seeds have a bye. So the first round, you never know what's going to happen. I'm looking at, you know, I'm just panning through it myself right now.
Yeah, same.
There's, you know, there's actually, to be honest with you, not really that many in the first round that are, other than Svitolina and Sasnovich. Like, what's going to happen there? Obviously, we know that Svitolina is coming back, and she came back pretty well. I have to say, surprisingly, playing some good matches in her first couple of weeks back. And really, that's the one match that I'm looking forward to out of that first round, and then we'll see what happens once they get through. Pavlyuchenkova, can she find some form again after reaching the French Open a couple of years ago and having knee problems? Yeah, I mean, Barbara Strycova is back, so we'll see what happens there. So yeah, there's some fun first rounds, but overall, sort of, that's what I don't really love, the buys. There's just a lot of, I don't know, no matches in the first round, to be quite honest, that are really interesting to me, other than the Kontaveit and Muchova match is probably the most interesting one of the first rounds.
Yeah, agreed. I think, yeah, Kontaveit Muchova, that was the one that stood out to me as like obvious. And there's like potential second rounds. Like, obviously, I think a lot of people in the UK are going to hype up a Swiatek Raducanu match. if that happens in round 2. I would say player to watch in this event might be Leylah Fernandez. She's very comfortable on clay. That match with Haddad Maia could be quite fun in round 2.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there with the two lefties ripping it at each other. But, I think the biggest issue with Leylah Fernandez really is the fact that her serve lets her down at times. Second serve is really attackable. And, I don't know. She's fallen off. There's a lot I could say sort of about her tennis. I think that her serve is something that has let her down. And also her margin for error is quite small. She likes to half hop a lot of the balls. But, playing at altitude will help her somewhat.
Yeah. Oh, our usual contributor, Joseph Gerolatis, wants to know your opinion on Lyudmila Samsonova. Oh, she's gone. Oh, well, never mind. Well, I can tell you my opinion on Lyudmila Samsonova. Oh, John can tell you his opinion on Lyudmila Samsonova. But to be fair, we did only have Rennae for 40 minutes. I don't think we expected her to drop quite so suddenly. But we're going to put that down to technical issues. But yeah, Samsonova should do well in Madrid. She's got a big game for it. The clay's not going to resist it. She's going to do probably similarly to how she did in Stuttgart last year. But Samsonova is also a very difficult player to predict, as are quite a lot of other big hitters on the WTA tour.
Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah, I can hear you, John.
Okay, great. You can. Yeah. Anyway, it's great to have Rennae for as long as we did. Maybe she'll pop back again. Maybe it's a battery issue. But I did want to get her to give a chance to promote her podcast with Caitlin Thompson. If she returns, I'll certainly bring that up on the screen. Samsonova. I don't know. Maybe I don't get quite as excited about her as other people do. Certainly regarding Madrid, I haven't got her on my winners radar anyway.
Yeah. It's same. I think outside of grass, it's difficult to have Samsonova as a guaranteed winner. She, again, hard to predict. So we'll see how that goes. I think it should be fun.
By the way, I want to promote your upcoming power. Oh, Rennae's back, by the way. I'll bring her back in.
Hi, guys. Sorry, I don't know what happened then. I just disappeared.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. These things happen. This is the world of the internet where we're trying to communicate across whole oceans. So don't worry about it. I mean, to be fair, we have kind of gone over the time that we agreed anyway. And I know that you're very busy, obviously. But
I have a little time. It's fine.
You got a little time. Okay. So I guess we had a question about your opinion on Lyudmila Samsonova.
Yeah, I was just saying she's a bit of a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. I mean, she's either winning, beating everybody, or she's getting crushed 0-0 or 2-love. I mean, it's just crazy. Either the ball's going in or it's not. And I think she can be a threat in Madrid, actually, because her massive serve and big game sort of suits the style there a little bit more than just being a grinder. So, as I said, once she gets into the draw, then she's very hard to beat. But she's a little bit, as I said, you just kind of don't really know what's going to happen. I mean, for her to lose the way she did in Stuttgart last week, I was like, what? So, yeah.
Which you find with a lot of big hitting players on the WTA tour is they are
2-love. Like, what? I mean, so that's where sometimes I look at the results, if I don't get a chance to watch because it's either in the middle of the night or something, and I'm just like, how does that happen? So, so she's a bit confusing sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, the most extreme example of that is Yelena Ostapenko. Let's be honest. It's very similar kind of big hitting, goes all out, but also you've got no idea what you're going to come up against.
Very true. Very true. I think Samsonova has a little bit more margin, but Ostapenko is that, just the classic, you never know what you're going to get. I mean, look at her last week. She was just crushing Ons and then found a way to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice. Ostapenko is a very extreme example.
Yeah.
All right. Will, I think, obviously you said you were, I'll tell you what, we're getting more questions from the chat at the minute. This is what happens when you've got interactive with the audience. Coco Gauff, actually, you are far better placed to comment on this because my knowledge of tennis technique is shocking. So what do you reckon about this question from Shunt, which has now disappeared off the screen? So
yeah, I saw it. Yeah, I mean, the extremity on her forehand is a lot. Now, there are some players like Iga Swiatek that have very similar grips. They're very, very extreme. But Iga really goes after the forehand and really extends through it and nails it. Whereas Coco guides it too much sometimes. So she has to either decide, am I going to really extend? And also I don't want to criticize her because I think she's such a terrific, first of all, one of the nicest kids you'll ever meet in your whole life, works her butt off. But I think she gets too stagnant with her feet as well. And if you watch Iga play, her feet never stop. They never stop. And so her feet not stopping causes her racket head in a lot of ways not to stop either. So there's that beautiful, balance that Iga has where it's like bam, 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 bam. Whereas I think sometimes with Coco, it's like one big plodding step hit. And I think that's part of the problem is her footwork. And then that slows her racket head down. So she has to figure out a way, either am I going to hit the crap out of this forehand and really let it go like she does with the backhand is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Or am I going to play a defensive forehand and be a little bit more like a Halep or a Wozniacki that never made a mistake on the forehand, even though both of them have had much weaker forehands, and that's where their breakdown would come. They just went to a place of I'm not going to miss. And then I'm going to use my speed around the court to set up my backhand, and I'm going to frustrate my opponent. So, Coco can come into the net as well. So she has quite good sense of how to move forward, which is really important. But there's that problem of when someone hits the ball hard and flat to her forehand, she gets a little bit too stagnant with the feet, and then the racket head goes slow, and then it causes her to miss a lot of forehand. So she has to decide, am I going to be very fast with the hands and quicker with the feet? And am I going to beat the speed back with speed like Iga does? Or am I going to play defensively and use so there's that juxtaposed position of the way she plays on the court. So, that's something that her coaches have to work on. And I have my theories, but I'm not coaching her.
Coco Gauff's coaches get Rennae Stubbs in as a consultant.
Well, that's actually something that I would like to do with someone like her, because you don't have to tinker all that much because she has the spirit. She has the fighting qualities. The second serve is also a bit of an issue for me. There's a couple of hitches there, and also her grip on her serve to me frustrates me as well. But her tenacity to want to play and win and try, and her backhand and her willingness to move forward. I like that she plays doubles. All of the things are all great. It's just that forehand is going to be a problem going forward for the rest of her career unless she figures out what she wants to do with it and how she wants to use it.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And I think the reason why she is top 10 in the world at 19 is that fighting spirit that she has.
Yeah.
She's makes her very, very hard to beat anyone outside the top 10.
Yeah. And her backhand and her speed and her volleys and her first serve are pretty damn good.
Yes, that also helps a lot.
Yeah.
So, and look, she doesn't get to world number one in doubles for nothing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
And she's still, and the fact she's so young means that she can work on this technique.
Yeah.
So there is hope. There is definitely hope if you're a Coco Gauff fan.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be pretty thrilled with my career if I was her age, having achieved what she's achieved. But I do think clay is probably one of her better surfaces because she does have time on the forehand to hit that high spinny one up the line and then set up the rest of her game. But there are things that she can certainly get better at, and she will get better at through the next 10 to 15 years, which is how long she'll probably play for.
I hope so, because I definitely think we should enjoy more of Coco. Right. Well, before you go, I just want to ask, ask you to tell us a bit more about your podcast that you have with Caitlin Thompson, and where we can hear a little bit more about your thoughts. Yeah,
well, I appreciate the photo. It's actually under my name now, the Rennae Stubbs Tennis Podcast.
Okay.
So you can find it at any of your apps. Just type in the Rennae Stubbs Tennis Podcast, 2 N's AE, like my name. And we just have a bit of fun. We get a little controversial sometimes because Caitlin and I are not shy in our thought process, what we think about things. Sometimes we ruffle some feathers, but I think that's important in tennis because, unfortunately, you've been in the game a long time. You get sort of the same narrative, and you also get the same thought processes. And I think we forget to look outside the box a little bit. I think that with Racket Magazine, with what they do about bringing in sort of social things and also the art variables and people that don't really consider themselves to be tennis people, but yet love tennis, and we like to involve them in it. But also just, I don't know, I think we have a different more critical thought process sometimes on the sport, but also nobody loves the sport like we do. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think it's good to have lots of different voices out there in the tennis world. I was having my colleague on this channel and I were talking, Damien, when we were commentating across everything happening on ATP and WTA, all on Super Saturday, if you want to call it that, with all the semi-finals going on at the same time. And we were chatting around all the tennis podcasts out there and how a lot of them say a lot of the same things. So it's definitely good to have some variety out there in the market.
Yeah, well, the good thing for us is that obviously I played professionally for over 20 years. So I have a very unique way of seeing the sport and loving the sport, seeing the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. And Caitlin, coming from college as a college tennis player, but also someone who's quite intellect, very worldly, worked as a journalist for Time magazine and all kinds of things. She has a very different way of thinking about things. And I'm very much, you know, in your face and very raw. And sometimes that hurts me, but also it is like how I feel at the time. Like in the last couple of podcasts, we've been a bit upset at the WTA, how they've handled a few things. And, you know, these are people that I know and I've known for 20 plus years. And if I'm going to be critical, it's because I'm coming from a place of maybe being a little frustrated, but also at the same time, I want it to be better. And so that's why sometimes the criticism comes, but also we're very different thinkers. And I think that's actually kind of important rather than just spewing the same boring narrative about tennis.
It's a fun dynamic. So yeah, everyone watching, go check out the podcast, check out Rennae presenting the Power Round on Amazon Prime. Thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us so many fantastic thoughts about Stuttgart and Madrid and Swiatek and coaching and the psychology of tennis. It's been absolutely fascinating conversation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and I appreciate it. And it's always good to have different voices in tennis, so I appreciate yours.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks very much, Rennae.
Okay,
hopefully we'll be around for a bit.
All right, I got to go do my other production meeting of my show. So I'll see you later.
See you later.
Okay, bye.
Bye. I was very, very kind of Rennae to stick around for a little bit longer for us, and we got fantastic interview out of it. So very, very grateful to her. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe. John is back live from Madrid, where he is going to be bringing us all the updates on the ground on the ATP and the WTA. WTA starts tomorrow. ATP starts on Wednesday. Is that right, John? Oh, there's no sound.
There we go. Now we should have sound, right?
Yeah, we've got you now.
Yes, we've got qualifying yesterday and today. Today and tomorrow on the WTA side. I think there is a couple of WTA 120, the last one, the first round. There's a couple tomorrow.
Yeah, there's some first rounds happening tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But I think ATP is the following day. But I'm all in a bit of a haze. I've just sort of come from Barcelona. I got the 7 o'clock train this morning, and it's But listen, Nick, before we bring this to a close, I want to mention that you're going to do a power rankings pretty much on a weekly basis between now and Madrid. We'll probably do that as a separate video and then just post it online like a 5-minute thing, maybe your top 10 players. I think it's a must, really. We can probably all guess who will probably be at the top right now. But to be honest with you, the other 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players that are the threats to her we've just touched upon, they could really be in any order.
Yeah, exactly. And I guarantee to you that viewers, that you're going to disagree with a lot of my rankings right now. And a lot of it is based on the fact we have so little data on clay right now, because we've only really got Stuttgart, Charleston, and Bogota from the main WTA tour. It's going to be, so there's going to be a lot of influence from last year's Roland Garros and past Roland Garroses. So far, Madrid's where it's going to start looking a bit more sane. But I'm looking forward to sharing my views with you all and getting a WTA power ranking out there, because I know that not many other shows do it. So I'm excited to discuss what everyone thinks is going to happen ahead of the French Open.
There's a gap in the the market for WTA power rankings. Listen, I will just add this as a closing statement. It's actually something I said to Jack earlier on his podcast. Make sure you check out On the Line. I do think the narrative has changed in the last 7 days with Iga's run in Stuttgart. I just think that a week ago, I would have posted who's winning the French, and most people would probably go with Iga, but who knows? People may suggest Sabalenka. Now, who's the biggest threat? Because the narrative has shifted more in Iga's favor. It's now like Iga and who else, not who, if you like.
Exactly. Yes. And for me, that was always kind of going to be the narrative. But I think it's solidified it for sure.
But now I think really a week ago, if somebody said that they were predicting Krejcikova, Sabalenka, even Rybakina for whatever reason, I'd be like, okay, yeah, fair enough. I still make Swiatek the favorite. That would be my response a week ago. Now, I think it's difficult to how can you make a case for Sabalenka right now? I mean, she's number 2, maybe on your power rankings, or number 4 or number 6. But to just legitimately say this is why Sabalenka's winning, I think that's quite difficult to make that argument.
Exactly. And I think before then, maybe you could have said, like, as Rennae was saying earlier, Barbora Krejcikova is possibly like still the biggest threat right now.
Could be.
But we'll find out. Thanks for coming on and joining us the last few minutes, John. I'm looking forward to seeing everything coming out of Madrid that you're going to produce and talking to all the players that you can. Looking forward to seeing that Laura Siegemund interview that you recorded.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be going on air in the next hour or two, depending how quickly I can get that edited and uploaded. But we had a good 10-minute chat about learning German, about tapas, and even a bit of tennis as well.
That's going to be so much fun to watch. So keep an eye on the channel. Make sure you subscribe so you can see that video, and stay subscribed to see more Madrid coverage coming from John on the ground and any commentary that we might be doing over the next couple of weeks. For now, I'll sign off. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.